For our clients, this would mean like a worse experience than what we can currently offer without Gutenberg, right?
Yeah.
What are we talking about, Stefan?
What are we talking about? We're talking about Gutenberg, the good, the bad, the ugly.
The block editor, right?
The block editor, as you know it from WordPress.
That's a big topic. We can probably fill a couple of episodes with that.
Our focus, though, today is going to be about why we don't use it. We are a WordPress agency and we don't run everything on Gutenberg. What is going on? And the answer is not so simple.
No. When was Gutenberg first introduced?
Years and years ago. When was WordCamp EU in Berlin? I think, was it 2018?
Yeah, but
because that's, or 19. Probably 19?
Yeah.
No, it has to be longer ago.
Earlier.
Okay, we
can ask
we're obviously not
ChatGPT.
perfectly prepared. However, we are a little bit prepared. we just talked about before hitting the record button. Yeah, we are actually a little prepared. First episode with a little preparation, some notes. Yeah, but obviously not all the notes.
Yeah.
But yeah, when Gutenberg was introduced.
It was 2018 that it was released, I think. But it was introduced way before, right?
Yeah, and from the very first day we saw it, we looked at it and we thought, okay, this looks to be the future. This looks to be super cool. The visual editor and what they're planning and so on. We gotta do something with it. And what happened then?
Yeah, then we tried it out.
Okay. Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. So yeah, we are talking a little bit vague, I guess, currently. But it's a difficult topic, right? Because Gutenberg is the future. I mean, WordPress is deprecating the classic editor at some point, or will be deprecating it. Gutenberg has a lot of potential, a lot of really nice features. There's so much development going on with it, right? Like, it's crazy also how detailed the development and like the like everything on GitHub is, where you can find like lots of information, where you have like basically people who explore new ideas, like what could be integrated, how to solve problems best, and so on. And this is like really an amazing project just from what is achieved there, right? But we see a couple of major issues and like a couple of like fundamental issues where we have yet not seen a benefit for us moving all of our client sites from our Flint approach, which is based on ACF, to like ACF is Advanced Custom Fields Pro, to a Gutenberg-based theme or strategy. And this actually applies in many ways, because on the one hand, we have the user experience, like usability of like the site, and also from a developer point of view, from the development experience and ease of development, and also the speed of development, right?
Yeah.
So
where should we start? Maybe with the user interface, because that's one of the most significant things that sticks out for Gutenberg, right? Without Gutenberg, what do you have? You have this interface of a classic, so-called classic editor, which is just a very basic WYSIWYG editor. And we don't use that anymore since a long time. It just can't do much, right? And I feel like most people and most websites don't rely on the classic editor either, but they rely on some kind of extra editor on top, like Elementor, like all these multi-purpose themes that have built their own builders or using stuff like Beaver Builder or whatsoever. And that's where Gutenberg looked to be a very cool improvement, a visual editor showing you updates in real time and being able to edit within the visual editor and so on. However, when we decided for WordPress, we decided back in the days, like we decided for WordPress because we felt that the whole system was very intuitive, including the editor interface, because back then websites we were building were much simpler, or it was easy to extend the classic editor. And we loved the fact that it was so easy to use that you basically didn't have to onboard people in the editing interface a lot. With Gutenberg, I simply don't feel the same way. Although it looks great, I personally still have to learn it. I look at it, I start editing something, and I'm confused with a couple of things. I don't know how to do certain things. I don't know what some buttons do. I need to test it out and figure it out. And it's just not the same core idea that we are following for all the websites we are building, that we want to make it very easy and stable for our customers to manage their websites, very intuitive. That might not be the main core goal of Gutenberg, but it's one of our core goals, right? I think it's different for me when it comes to editing text, long copy, writing blog posts. I think that's where Gutenberg still is is super nice and rather intuitive when it comes to formatting long text and writing long text and moving text around and so on. But for full site editing, like we're using it with components, adding components to a page, moving them around, and so on, it's not intuitive for me at the moment.
Yeah, it does get quite messy. There are so many buttons and so many things that you can do, right? And then you have the overview. They are trying to improve it, from the beginning. Basically, it still looks pretty much the same as it did initially, right? Just stuff was added. and this doesn't make it simpler. It just helps you to find your way around and to achieve different tasks. But overall, looking at it, and if you give it Gutenberg to somebody who is not tech savvy, who doesn't have who doesn't spend a lot of time in front of the computer, then it's I think it's quite difficult for them to figure out what to do and how to do it, right? But still, there's a lot being done. I don't know, maybe at some point things do get simpler again. The first question would be, is actually this inline editing the most simple way, right? Or is it not better to have these, code blocks, or in advanced custom fields, you have this flexible content field where you can and this also, we always preferred that over page builders, because you don't have all the flexibility. You can only change the order of things, but not so much details between, or and you can only edit the things that we say you can edit.
Yeah.
And nothing else, right?
So we like to limit the interface a lot for editors. You can still do that with Gutenberg, and you can customize it. You can strip out functionality and so on. And you could build everything from scratch in a similar way. But that's probably a lot of work to do in the first place. That's more a developer topic, probably. Are we talking still about the UI? Yeah, I like the editing interface not being like a WYSIWYG editor, but having structured fields that also have a nice UI, like that they're ordered visually in a way that it makes sense that you understand what's happening. But at the same time, I like the live preview. I really like using the interface like when you don't always have to switch between preview and edit mode, but kind of like you have it with the sidebar with ACF, when you create with ACF a component, a block. And then in the sidebar, you have some fields, you edit some option there, and then on the left-hand side in the preview window, you immediately see that change. I actually like that concept. It's just when you do that with ACF right now, you have a very narrow column on the right-hand side where all those fields get crammed into. And it's very hard to get everything inside of that interface that you need for a nice editing interface. So for me, I would just ask for that sidebar or to be bigger, or for an alternative interface, that I have more space for the editing part and a separate preview area. I also like when in the preview editor area, I can do some inner block stuff, like edit some text inside of the WYSIWYG. I like that experience. But for everything that is about layout and structured data, uploading images, I consider this more to be data that I want to edit in a table-like interface, something like that, and not mess around with that within the WYSIWYG.
Yeah. This also confuses you or can confuse clients in Gutenberg, because actually what you see in the WP admin is not necessarily exactly what you see in the front end, right? Mm-hmm. So it is not a complete like inline editing of the front page. I mean, there are other CMSs or editors where you actually just get like an overlay on the live side and then can like change stuff there. But this is like a hybrid. It should look as close as possible to the front end, but it's another thing kind of that you have to develop and style, right?
Yeah.
So that's where things also get complicated. Like, there's also another development issue, right? Because it seems like for a Gutenberg block, you have to not only code the front end, but you have to code the front end, think about the data structure, and also create a front end for WP admin.
Yeah.
So,
like, for example, even if you want to make it look exactly like the homepage, typically between those blocks in the back end, you have a little padding, which leaves space to insert other blocks. But that alone like makes it not look like the actual page, but it's like a page with spaces in between. And if you remove them, you could do that, but then the interface, you're messing with the actual Gutenberg interface. It's a bit confusing, yeah. And also with the editor, you will have to code extra CSS, at least because of the breakpoints. Because when you develop a block based on the window width, like create a media breakpoint for that, the Gutenberg interface, it's not like that's inside of an iframe, but it takes the whole window width as a measure, also counting in a possible sidebar. So your breakpoints simply don't work anymore. They are wrong. So everything breaks, basically. Nothing looks exactly as you want it to be, as you expect it to be. You could solve that with container queries. And container queries are soon here. They're kind of here already. I think only Firefox doesn't support it right now, and you can still polyfill that. But yeah, that's only happening now, and you would need to rewrite stuff without container
and I think
queries.
like WordPress is definitely moving into that direction as well, right? They're also calling it intrinsic design, where they want blocks. I mean, that's the nature of blocks, right? You want it to work in any context.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter if you put it in a column or in like a full width, or you like expand even the full width and have it bleed out. You want your block to always work, and that's why it makes a lot of sense in such a context. And we have always also, right, thought about things like that when we were talking about our Flint components.
Yeah. And that, I think that can be a big game changer because like the container queries, because we usually always want to also prevent that within a component. For us, a component is more like a collection of blocks. Like we try to make it a full site with element, more like a pattern. What's the pattern in Gutenberg? Yeah. And we always try to prevent cascading kind of blocks or components within nesting. Sorry, what did I say? Cascading. Nesting them. Because then you have these problems of with media queries and display that you wouldn't know in which context it would, or if it always behaved in the right way. With container queries, this could almost perfectly be possible and could open up like a lot of new opportunities when it comes to also content management and nesting elements, blocks, components, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, so that's one thing. Like there is a solution, like, or in some, some article by Rich Taber, I think is his name, right? He showed about like the new template locks in WordPress or in Gutenberg, where you can actually say you want to lock the template for content editing only. And this actually gets rid of a lot of like UI elements already. And also these things that we usually don't want our clients to modify, right? Because when we like themes for us are not a design tool. Themes for us are a content tool, and we provide the design basis with our theme. So we basically implement, even if the client doesn't know about design systems or whatever, we implement the design system for their CI into a WordPress theme and let them then change content based on that, right? Yeah, and things
we
like...
We built custom builders, like it's like building a custom website builder for our clients.
Yeah. And this template lock content only, I think it's called. This goes into the direction. And there are a lot of things that are happening that go into the direction of actually making a theme more curatable or whatever, like so that you can curate like the content or the design a bit more. But I think like the issue is that WordPress itself, like the main goal, at least from Automatic, is to attract, like to be a blogging platform mostly, right? And to make it easy, like to compete with page builders like Wix, Squarespace, and like whatever else is out there, right? So, and I think the use case that we have for like agency, like corporate websites, also like bigger websites with a lot of content, this somehow gets at least in the main theme of it all a little bit forgotten. And I know that there are a lot of like core team contributors or members and who also want to support that and to think that this is really important, but it's not number one on the list of interests, I would say. Yeah. So let's move further from UI. Right? What's the next thing? Or did you want to say something to that?
Yeah. I was just thinking when you said that what's in the interest, I just thought about what we are also a different or a special kind of target group kind of WordPress users, if you want to say it like that, because like we are website builders. We are building websites for clients. And we want to do it in a certain way. And the vast majority of WordPress users probably is not agencies, not developers, but people would want to just like use the system as end users. They want to be as flexible as possible in many ways of doing everything in the backend themselves, or coding stuff and copy and pasting some snippets and adding some blocks. We as developers, as an agency, we want to provide a very stable and great experience for our customers that we build websites for and that we maintain their website for. And such an interface looks just very much different than a multi-purpose, the backend of a multi-purpose theme, right? Because those multi-purpose themes and channel usage themes and approaches, yeah, they need to cater for all kinds of situations. And that's why those interfaces typically are more complex. You need to know more, and you can also break more in terms of design and functionality, because you need to, be much more aware. You need to be the modern webmaster.
Yeah.
I think what I said, the thought I had the other day, and I said, I feel like with Gutenberg, it might need or might result in a coming back of the webmasters that we had back in the early web days, right?
Yeah.
Because what is a webmaster with Gutenberg? Yeah, someone who knows about has some design look at, like some design feeling, knows enough about coding to configure such a page, and also manages the content and is juggling these things kind of. And most of our clients, they're not webmasters, but they're more like editors, content managers, marketing people, which should have a rather simple to use interface. But it's not just that because they can't handle the stuff. Even I myself, I want an easy to use interface in the backend.
Yeah.
That's customized to my needs.
I want to think about the design once and hopefully like solve all of the issues already with the components or blocks that were created. Then I want to use these and not think about design again.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why, like, I think and we said that before, but what we call components in Flint are more like patterns that in Gutenberg that where you can just combine a couple, like, different elements to have like one ready-made content part or section. The problem with patterns then, however, is, and now we're getting into another issue of Gutenberg, which is more like developer or also maintenance focused, that yes, you have this pattern in Gutenberg that you can add to a page, but then you lose the connection to this pattern. So if you ever decide to change this pattern in code, you can do so, but this change will not be reflected on the pages where you've added the pattern and made the changes, because like you can change basically everything, like all the content then on the page. So this is like
a pattern
an
is more like a boilerplate, and
yeah,
from
exactly.
there it's
you paste you basically, and what it actually is, you paste HTML into a site and then can edit this HTML, right? And this is one of the biggest problems that I have with Gutenberg. And this is like the fundamental thing, that you are basically using the browser, or the browser is used as a rendering engine for your website, right? So you execute JavaScript, like React code, to generate HTML, and this HTML is then saved into the post content, or like in the database, with like some additional attributes and comments to know like what it is. And this leads to the same problems that we had with basically every page builder that was used before, that we used before. Because when you, for example, select a color somewhere, right? And like when creating a website, and you have like some like components that you add to different pages, and you always select the color because this is your main color. And then you want to change the theme color. Then you have to go in the database and change the string of the color everywhere where you find it, but you don't know that this is always like the theme color. It could also be some other color, right? And what Gutenberg does is when you have a block and you've added it to a page, and then suddenly in code you change the code of it, like the markup, it will tell you that this block is invalid and that you need to re-render it. But this is a manual process you have to do because you have JavaScript as your rendering engine. And this cannot be like done with PHP or anything, which is used as a server. But you need to execute React code.
Mhm.
And this for me was from the beginning the biggest like downside of it, and why I was so skeptical. However, there are so many good developments or things that have been added that there will be a point in time where we just say, okay, let's do it now. It's just everyone else can handle it, so we can sure make it work somehow as well. And I mean, there's WordPress VIP, right? Which is like for very large websites, and they have been pushing Gutenberg and are using Gutenberg as well. And yeah.
But about this problem, the HTML that is generated, you can still you can do stuff like write a migration, right? So let the component the block know that there's a newer version. What should happen with that? I think you can run that also on multiple pages automatically.
Yeah, but you have to visit them.
Okay.
Right.
But what about that other way?
Yeah, you can do dynamic blocks, like server-side rendered blocks. Yes. But then you lose some sort of like the interactivity in the front end. Or you have to write everything twice. Because you could write a template or like write like the JavaScript part, the edit action where you have like a rich text component and then save that data to an attribute. And then, however, you write like how the edit stuff looks in JavaScript, in React, and then you have to write again how this is rendered in PHP.
And that's just
duplicate
complicated
content.
and duplicate code, right?
Yeah.
And what we also wondered about in the past is like this is just as a developer, this is a lot of extra effort actually compared to how we develop websites in WordPress right now.
Yes.
And who's going to pay us for that? No one.
The competition.
Yeah. But so we were just asked to spend a lot more time than, or that doesn't make sense that we're not asked, but it doesn't make so much sense for us to do it that way.
Yeah.
But to only code it once, and if you only code it once with the Gutenberg way, then you have all this statically generated HTML code, which doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
I'm a bit like do we get used to this at some point? Will we look back to this in 5 years and say, oh yeah, back in the days we were scared, but now that's just normal?
Yeah, I mean, it could be that we are over exaggerating the effect of it, and that this is true in development, right? Like and maybe there should just be an option here, like don't invalidate blocks, just render the new stuff whenever you render this thing. But once something is live, maybe this is not an issue, because then you think about other stuff, or like there are not only if you have big migrations then, right? If you want to have like a complete new design or like use new components for everything, but then you would probably write a script anyways, or use like a headless browser to do this, or use JavaScript to help you with it. I mean, maybe like, but for me, this is like a structural thing that I do not understand and do not agree with. And this is where I'm always getting back to. Yeah. But there are like, yeah, exactly. There are just structural problems. No matter how good the other stuff is. Yeah. But again, you said something before that I also want to tackle, because we are like the easiest thing for us as we are using advanced custom fields would be to just use the ACF blocks, which is like a way how to define blocks basically in the same way that we're building our components so far, but just using that as like content, as native Gutenberg blocks, or not native, but Gutenberg blocks. And then, and the thing is that you then don't have like the, there is a way to include inner blocks, but only like on one nested level, right? And you can it's usually you have a rendered component in the content, but you can edit it only either in the sidebar or use the edit mode, right? Where you then have the edit stuff inside of the content, but you don't see the preview then at the same time. Like you always have to switch, right?
Yeah.
So, and yeah. But for some reason
And I just wanted to say that's how we built our current bleach.de website, right? Because we said we have to look into this again and again. So let's just make an experiment. And we just built our brand new website with that. Gutenberg blocks based on ACF.
Yeah.
Blocks. Yeah.
And how did you like it?
Well, I like it. I like some parts a lot about it, the live preview and so on. And then again, it's confusing at times because we're mixing blocks and components and it's not clear what happens when. Just yesterday, I found out by accident that our content manager, she added a button to a page, or maybe even it was me, some kind, like just a button on a page. And I wasn't really aware what this would lead to because I was inserting this with the Gutenberg block. And now yesterday I found an extra CSS style sheet loading on our website just for this one button. And it's duplicate code now because we have that button styled in the base style and we are like loading our CSS differently. Now we have this extra file, which is just annoying me so much for this one button that was inserted. So we shouldn't, what's the learning? We shouldn't have allowed that button or blocks or only use blocks and then render those things differently. Another thing is that people are using this edit and preview mode differently. I saw a lot of, like, I think all of our developers, no one used the preview mode. Everyone just used the edit mode. And when I went into it, I was switching back everything to the preview mode. But I think does that change on a user level? Or is it for everyone the same? I felt like it was the same for everyone. And then I logged in again and then it was back to the edit mode. And then you can change the edit mode and the preview mode for every block component on our end. And then some things are in edit mode, some are in preview mode. And this is also very confusing to me. I would prefer things to be only like everything, only in edit or in preview mode. Currently on our website, normal list items inside of a native Gutenberg block are broken. The backend interface doesn't work. It always breaks. We have to go into and edit some HTML. And I think we have now a ticket for someone on our team to fix just a list item inside of a regular, what I call Visibig, which is weird that such a basic thing now breaks. So overall, we might be doing a lot of things wrong, and some reason might also that we are using it mixed. But the way we try to use it, and we put serious effort into it, the experience is just inconsistent and buggy. Sorry.
Yeah, and this for our clients, this would mean like a worse, like a less good experience than what we can currently offer without Gutenberg, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We wanted to explain to them whether we get like bug reports about the back end. We usually don't get bug reports about the back end. We would open up a new opportunity for our clients to complain about bugs in the back end also, and things them not understanding things and coming up with, hey, could you please change this, how this works here and there? And it's like, no, or it's probably going to be a lot of effort and you will need to pay a lot for that. Or I think, it doesn't outweigh the advantage. I'd be willing to move forward with this if it outweighed like the previous disadvantage or the current disadvantages and had these big advantages over how we used it in the past. But it doesn't feel like it's balanced yet.
Yeah, and it's 4 years in, huh?
4 years in, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit...
Again, I really love Gutenberg for editing text, for writing long copy. Actually, I think the first time I did that was when I was writing a blog post for CSS tricks. I was happily enough to get the chance to write a blog post there, and I sent it to them, I think, and then they added to the website and gave me access. And I really liked the experience editing the blog post there, and I also like it on our page, unless right now the list items don't work. But I'm still very skeptical about the full site editing stuff and all that. I wouldn't be surprised if there would be a great future, and I'm still considering Gutenberg to be the future. I just think there needs to be still stuff happening, and probably not just things to be added, but maybe even a pivot or something. Someone looking at the whole thing again. And also, like, when looking at the accessibility, not just looking if there are the right fields and stuff like that, but also looking at the user interface from a UX point of view, at a whole thing, not just adding buttons, but looking, it's like, and making user tests. I don't know if they're doing that, but that's how I would approach it. Let people use it and see what questions they come up with. And if you would do that user test with me right now, again, there's a lot of stuff where I would look at and it's like, I have no idea what this button will do. And then I click a button and it's like, okay, I have no idea how to revert that now, or how to ungroup or regroup that stuff, or what actually happened now. I am confused and I'm willing to learn, but please make it more simple and more self-explanatory. I think that should be the benchmark kind of for software that is running half of the internet, or should be running the future half of the internet with WordPress.
Yeah, and I mean, I've seen people using Gutenberg like a pro, of course. So when you're used to it, it might feel easy. Like you use this tree view a lot more, and you do other things, right? But again, like, somebody who's new to that and who hasn't used it before, like, you need to train to do it. And WordPress before, like, you didn't need to do that. Right? I mean, we also train our, like, we have content workshops, content management workshops with our clients. But usually it's more about details and explaining, like, specific components that we've developed, and not like the WordPress basics, because it feels like everyone knows the WordPress basics, right?
Yeah, right. We're just mostly explaining where you find which option, how we organize the content, the custom post types, the options, the translatable options, what kind of templates we created, and so on. Yeah, but not like, hey, this is how you add, edit, upload stuff. Yeah, but you will need to explain this more, like, or more the overall interface with Gutenberg to people in the future. Yeah. Are there any other points on your list about Gutenberg?
I mean, one thing is that Gutenberg, like, moves still, although we are 4 years in, at such a high pace. And it's sometimes just crazy. First of all, it's crazy to follow along. Although everything is well documented, it doesn't feel like there's a centralized place that is up to date with everything that is going on. So that means if you develop something now, it might be that you have to change all of it in a year, because so many things have changed, right? Especially if you customize things. Like, I don't know, if you want to, like, build upon the core blocks, and then the core blocks change, what happens? But you don't want to, like, reinvent all of the core blocks. Actually, maybe you want to, and just use attributes and server-side rendering for everything, right? But that
feels dangerous.
It feels like you first of all, you don't know how to get most of the information. A lot of the, like, I've spent hours and hours in GitHub on Gutenberg trying to develop proof of concepts or come up with solutions for our problems and so on. But you cannot, like, do that all the time, right? And like Flint has been bulletproof for like years. I mean, our current version that's on the master branch is so old, it feels. And we are working, like we are about to release a new version soon, hopefully. It can be found publicly on the next branch of the Flint repo. But still, like I feel there's not a lot we have to change, like from a structural point of view, and with the components as well. And with Gutenberg, it feels like, okay, everything that we do now, it's uncertain if we actually can reuse that in the future, and how much work we have to put in to be reusing it. And then and then there are no experts. There's no one who is very experienced with the latest features because they have just been developed.
Yeah. Right. When we went to this WordCamp EU in Berlin, 2019 maybe, or maybe even 2018. I remember that's when we considered moving to Gutenberg, and we were thinking about a lot, and then we said no, not yet. We were on that WordCamp also working a little on core contribution or testing for Gutenberg and so on, and we said no, not yet. We're gonna wait until it's stable, and when it was officially stable, we still didn't feel it was stable. And some years later, it doesn't feel like it is stable yet, but it feels like it still needs time. And that is a bit challenging for us.
It's version 14.8 or 9 now, I think.
Okay, I think my son just came home.
You haven't heard my kids before. I hear them in the headphones.
Just very silently. One more thing about the expert thing. I think 10up, they did something recently. Didn't they create like a huge section with like learning Gutenberg and so on?
It could be, but the thing is, the moment you write it, it's like outdated. It feels like, right? Because there's so many things coming in.
Yeah. So still, like we ended up with, okay, at some point, probably again, we look at that topic at Gutenberg and say, probably we should go all in, and then it might work, going all in Gutenberg, leaving everything else behind, just going all in, and it'll be fine. We'll find our way and we'll make compromise with everything else. But every time until now, since we asked it, we felt, no, not yet, not yet. We just feel too comfortable, and we're still always concerned that we're waiting too long. At some point, we should just make the jump. But again, it feels better to stay with ACF and the classic interface than switching to Gutenberg. So I really hope this will change at some point. But I think there's quite some stuff that needs to happen.
Yeah, and we are really open for input as well. So if you are using Gutenberg in an agency environment with lots of clients where they have not a lot of control, or where you're basically building like a custom builder without a lot of like freedom in design changes and so on, just drop us a comment or write us an email and or call us, and we are happy to discuss this. Yeah.
Yes.